Welcome to the Indigenous Entrepreneurs Podcast. Today I have Mytegia Lee, one of our tribal liaisons, with us, as well as Rose Eason, who is the executive director of Gallup Arts. And Mytegia brought up this topic as something that she thought would be good for us to talk about on here, about just like art and artists and different ways that artists can sell their art aside from just working with like trade posts and selling at flea markets. So we invited Rose to come on here to give some of her insight. But before we get started, I would just like for Rose and Mytegia, if you could introduce yourselves, and then we'll get going on the discussion today.
Okay, I'll go ahead and I'll go first. My name is Mytegia Lee. I am one of the Tribal Entrepreneur Enhancement Program's Tribal Liaisons, and I also serve as Executive Director for Southwest Native Assets Coalition. And I'm a tribal community member of Navajo and living out here in Manuelito, right along the Gallup borders. So servicing all throughout Eastern and Western Agency, and just any and everyone I could reach if it's not in person via Zoom.
And I am Rose Eason, and as Cecilia said, I'm the Executive Director of Gallup Arts, which is the nonprofit arts council serving Gallup and McKinley County. And our mission is to support local artists and grow the regional creative economy while expanding access to the arts in our community. So we have 2 downtown art galleries, we do art festivals and concerts, different types of art markets, public art projects, art classes and workshops, and youth arts education, and lots of different things.
So Rose and I met a couple years ago. We were working on possibly starting up a cooperative for artists in Gallup. And I don't think it came to fruition yet, but I think there's still a need and a desire to make that happen. So I think this conversation will just kind of help amplify those efforts and just add to the reasons why an artist cooperative might be beneficial. But just to get started, I'm wondering if both of you can share kind of from your different experiences and perspectives, what are some of the needs and barriers that you see artists facing in the Gallup area and Navajo Nation?
Okay, so I'll go ahead and I'll chime in on this one. I think that I firsthand will see this all the time. When it comes to barriers that folks that I sit down with when we talk to them about what grants are available or what resources are out there that are able to assist them, or whether or not they're banked or they understand how to apply for an EIN number, anything like that. All the individuals that I more likely will try to approach or ask are those that are older, and a lot of the times they are predominantly Navajo speaking. And when you do start to communicate to them about their jewelry, I do wear a lot of jewelry. I buy a lot of jewelry locally. I have a lot of family members. I myself am an artisan. So, I start off the conversation gradually by asking them, when they started doing their work. And, have you established an EIN? Do you have a banking account number or anything associated with your EIN? What are you doing to help yourself in the realm of ensuring that you're successful with what you're doing? And a lot of the times they just say that they didn't know, that they didn't have any idea about how to go about it, or that they should do that. No one's really talked to them about it. And the other thing is just them not having access to the internet, them not having access to smartphone capabilities, or living in rural communities and living in a multi-generational home where they don't have a vehicle to where they could say, okay, I'm going to drop everything, go in and meet Tega, get all this stuff done. I'm going to go to the bank. I'm going to go here, there, and everywhere. So those are some of the things that I do see right off the bat with everybody that I do work with. So I try to be cognizant to that and make sure that if there is a client that does need help with anything, I'm taking the time to meet them where they're at, if that's easier for them, and to just go over what they'll need, or try to tell them to meet me one of the best places I always refer everybody to is meet me at Camille's. They have Wi-Fi. We have a space where we can work. I could get all your information. We could upload all your information that we need. If we're doing a grant application, or if there's any inquiries that they have, we could further explore all of that with them, without having to really have it be an inconvenience to them. But that's one of the issues. And then just not having any kind of an ecosystem for entrepreneurs to try to grow. So that was one of the issues that we did speak of with the Navajo Nation and UNM, as well as other folks that are around the community, of saying, what kind of hub can we have that is open to the public, in a sense of where folks can go in and get the help that they need without being afraid of asking for that help. And then at the same time, not having the doors closed all the time. That's the other issue is, the building is there, but the doors are not open and the resources are not open to the public.
Rose, what are your observations? I know you work with a lot of artists, so anything that you want to add?
Yeah, Mytegia did a great job of drilling down into some of the specifics that make it hard for artists to understand what opportunities exist and then access them. And I think the broader challenges, at least speaking to Gallup's art market and arts economy, is that it is just prejudice and bias, and it's definitely very heavily mediated by the trading economy, which historically has not worked in artists' favor, and not it's been there to enrich and promote the traders and not the artists. And a lot of the artists that we work with have a difficult time navigating that, because it's such a great power imbalance, and because the trading economy is so pervasive and prevalent that that's kind of the guaranteed place to make sales, and it's very difficult to sell outside of that. And to go back to some of what Mytegia said, a lot of our artists are operating in the informal economy, and that makes it hard for them to do things like take out a loan, or have a different type of business plan or model. And so they end up in these situations where they need to sell their work immediately, or they can't cover carrying costs of waiting for the next market or a better sales opportunity. And so the traders can really take advantage of that and lowball artists. And the thing I always like to say to paint the picture is that the last time the state came in and did a survey, what they found is that 1 in 4, 25% of McKinley County residents make at least part of their living through the arts. But I think the context that's needed for that statistic is that the poverty rate in our county is something like 33%. And so even though we say artists are making their living at least partly through the arts, they're not really making a living. And I think a lot of that has to do with how the trading economy has operated for the last 100 years and continues to operate. And the issues that creates for artists seeking to do things differently are just enormous.
And I don't think it's unique to just Gallup and McKinley County. Like, I know it's probably more prevalent there than other parts of this state, but I know I've heard from like the northern pueblos too that Santa Fe's art market and trading posts does not fairly compensate the native artists and definitely takes advantage. So I think it's important to have these conversations. That way we can help these artisans who are making these beautiful pieces of art get paid what they deserve, and kind of maybe figure out how to cut out the middleman. I know that's probably not 100% like always going to be possible. But if, let's say someone's listening to this and they're an artist and they've experienced the trade economy, or just like that whole dynamic, and they're tired of it and they want to start figuring out other ways that they can sell their art. I'm wondering if you guys can speak to different approaches maybe that they can at least think about outside of just using the trading posts?
So one of the things that I want to say is just like what Rose said, it's very paramount when you go into these tribal communities. And I will always say tribal. I won't say indigenous or anything else. I will always say tribal. It's not just here in Navajo that we're dealing with this, but it's $1 billion industry. The Native American art industry is $1 billion industry. You see it's like plastered across everything. I mean, Pendleton even, the Southwest Designs, and there's not a real understanding of what that art means, what certain patterns mean, and that distrust has been created. And just like any other thing with genocide and everything that we deal with in today's society, the distrust is placed there by these traders. And this is one of the reasons why even to date there are a lot of individuals that I have repetitively walked up to at these arts crawls or these events that they have when they're all throughout Gallup, parades where you have vendors or set up, or the nightly dances, Earls. You go to the local swap meets, whether it's Yatahe, Gallup, Church Rock, or any of these summer arts crawls that they have with the Navajo Nation. Anywhere you go, folks would rather go in person and do business in person with people and get that handshake and exchange items right there, as opposed to getting online. Because even going online, you run the risk of being scammed again. And you're dealing with a society where tribal community members still can't really comprehend technology. So when you can't really understand how to use that, or, am I going to take the loss if something is to not fall through when it comes to electronic payments or anything like that, they feel as if they're running the risk and they're not making enough. They're not making enough. And there's nothing there to supplement their income. If they take that loss, it's a loss. And it's something that can basically be a make or break for them as to whether or not they're going to be able to buy more material, buy more stones, or just continue bringing that artwork to fruition. And I think that the art markets are really good. The art markets that they do, I think Gallup's doing a really, really good job at that. I will give it to Rose and everybody else that has been hosting these events that really promote in-person vendors to set up, because I tell everybody everywhere, I'm Navajo, and there's so many people that would rather see me in person and get a handshake. It's just as good as a contract. It's probably better than a contract for a lot of us tribal members, for you to be able to still be able to have that. And it's just knowing that you're going to see that person, you trust that person. If something's not to go the way that you need it to, everything gets dealt with in person, as opposed to it being, something on a whim. It's taking the risk. But I would say that that's part of it. I know that there are a lot of individuals that are out there that have migrated and have been successful with TikTok and Instagram, Facebook, and getting online and selling their items and whatnot. But then again, we still have a larger portion. I'm going to say maybe even over 70% of these tribal members that are living out in rural communities that still don't have access to that rely heavily on these swap meets and events that happen to where they could do that, like Santa Fe Art Market and Herd Museum, and other events that are hosted all throughout New Mexico and Arizona.
I think, there are artists who are starting to sell online, and I think that that's a good workaround for those who have the capacity and the technology and equipment. I think all the direct sales that Mytegia is talking about are, kind of the best workarounds that artists have, to your point, Cecilia, about cutting out the middlemen. But yeah, none of them are perfect. And I think, what we've been encouraging artists to think about more these days is doing that kind of business planning, where they can strategize kind of what different opportunities exist for them and how they might leverage those things. And maybe there's some way for them to merchandise some of their stuff that can provide that kind of just regular income, so that they can focus on other projects or getting set up to do residencies and grants, and also just even networking and figuring out kind of what exists out there in terms of relationship building and where that might take them, and to kind of expand just their view of what it means to be a creative or artistic entrepreneur. And it doesn't always just have to mean like selling things, individual or original pieces. It can incorporate a lot of different facets, or teaching classes, things like that, to supplement their income, or I guess diversify their portfolio. I'm not a financial person, but that starting to have some of those conversations to try to disrupt kind of that just hand to mouth pattern, or the uncertainty, or the just the make them able to sustain a living as an artist better.
I think that's so important. Like the diversifying income streams that I don't think a lot of people who don't have like a business or entrepreneurial background kind of think of. A lot of times you think like, okay, this is my business, I sell my art, and you just focus on like one-to-one sales type, that in person. But I think, and Mytegia talks about this all the time, is like sovereignty through education. So educating people about different ways they can sell their art, whether it be online, and teaching them the best places to go that they can trust, or like you said, using grants. This is something that my husband and I have actually been working on because he's a photographer. He started his business about almost 2 years ago, and mostly started with like one-on-one, like selling photo shoots. But now he's like contracted with the city a few times. We're talking about doing prints. So like getting artists to think in like a little bit more dynamic ways about like how can I um create more than just one stream of income. And even if incorporating like working with the trading post to a certain capacity, to bring in if they just need money immediately, but then also knowing that they have other ways to make money, and to be paid for their work and their art, and not have to have that middleman take away such a big chunk of what their art is worth. So I think that's key. Just listening to both of you guys talk, is that diversifying income streams and then educating artists on different ways that they can do that. Um,
Wait,
I know.
sorry, Cecilia, I don't want to interrupt you, but
No,
that's why
you're fine. Go ahead.
important, the education piece, because I think it's not just a lack of education, it's diseducation. And I think that's some of what I was trying to explain, and probably too polite of terms, with the trading economy, is that they've convinced artists that this is the way that business is done, or they've scared them into thinking that it can't be done a different way. And Mytegia was talking about people not trusting, formalizing their business, or incorporating, or the whole issue with not understanding the tax structures and things. And I think a lot of that is perpetuated by the trading economy. And the more we can educate artists and help them understand what the benefits are, what the risks are, and what it really means, and what they're really responsible for when they become, again, a incorporated business, wherever, city, county, state, Navajo Nation, or wherever it might be. And then what opens up to them, because you can't contract with the city of Albuquerque or whatever if you're not, if you don't have that CRS number and stuff. So we really need to, I think, work on that too, because there's been so much misinformation. And I think, like, honestly, just straight up scare tactics used to prevent people from doing that, because then the competition is, the trading posts they just don't have as many options to undersell people. So sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, you're fine.
Question, I got you off here.
No, this is an open conversation. So thanks for, adding to that, because I think it's important. Both you and Mytegia work more closely in this field than I do. I just know what I've heard from working with both of you. So, I was gonna say, just as like Mytegia said, selling in person is really important. I know, Rose, you do a lot of work to kind of help create those opportunities through like ART123 and different things that you guys are doing. So I'm wondering if you can just talk about some of the efforts that Gallup Arts has been working on to create more opportunities to sell in person and then maybe provide some of that education to artists.
Yeah, sure. So ART123 Gallery is kind of downtown Gallup's flagship gallery, and it isn't a co-op. It was, and when we took it over, we kept a little bit of that model. So we do have member artists who show there, and then we also do open calls for group shows, um, and try to carve out space for artists to represent themselves in the arts market. That gallery is mostly dealing with like I guess 2D visual artists, painters, printmakers, photographers, and that's not necessarily by design, but that just seems to be who the model works for the best. So we're not necessarily reaching too many jewelers or potters or weavers. Um, and then we do a pop-up, the kind of the caveat to that, not caveat, but we've engineered this 4 to 6 week, I don't know what it'll be this year, I think 5 weeks, pop-up holiday art market, we call it, at the gallery, during, the holiday shopping season. And we essentially run more of a, I don't want to call it gift shop in like pejorative way, but we set up stalls, and invite, I think last year we had 21 artists participating, and we run a store for them for 5 or 6 weeks, so that they can sell, more gift type things, during the gift buying season. And we have done markets in the past, but this is kind of where we've landed on. Gallup has a lot of art markets happening, especially during the holiday season, and they're taxing on artists. There's the booth fee and then just the time being there, and it can really add up. And so what we thought we could help with is letting them have kind of a dedicated space where they can refer people over the course of that entire 6 weeks leading up to Christmas in particular. And they don't have to be there. They don't have to be manning it. They don't have to deal with all the sales and the transactions, and we take that load off for them. And then we do artist trainings. We have great partners like Rainforest, and we've worked with lots of others to bring in experts to do trainings in hard and soft skills. So we've done financial literacy trainings and business planning trainings, and also how to put together a portfolio and write an artist statement. And then in between trainings, because those are contingent on funding and the partnerships and things, we operate what we call a lift zone at ART123, where we do have photography and lighting equipment and Wi-Fi access and internet that artists can use free of charge, so that they can have higher quality photos for their grant application or their social media or their e-commerce store, or they can, get on and take care of business online if they need to. We have a laptop that they can use as well. And so that our gallery is open Tuesdays through Fridays 2 to 6 and Saturdays 12 to 6. And really the lift zone can be open during those times. It's helpful if people call ahead for appointments, because then we can be ready for them and make sure they have space and the equipment's all charged and ready to go. But those are some of the things that we do and that we've found success with helping artists. I wish we could do more. I do wish we could bring that co-op to life, but we're still working on it.
I hope someday it will come to fruition. It just might take time. But I think the need is there and the desire. It's just finding the right people to just go for it, you know. Mhm. Um, in terms of like ways to sell your art, I know there is like the trading posts, there's like you can do online sales, or of course everyone's preference is in person, but there's other ways that artists can kind of maybe display their art in a gallery or sell on consignment. Um, what are those different models and like what do they look like? Because I'm not even fully aware of exactly all the different ways artists can kind of like display their art and then get paid for their art. I don't know if you or Mytegia can share some of that with me.
I can tell you how ART123 works and my general understanding of galleries. So ART123, I said we have member artists. They pay monthly dues and they have dedicated display space year round. And we don't take a commission on any of their sales. So it's kind of I guess the idea is the risk is that you're paying up front with the hope that you make sales, and then there's no, extra fee on top of that. And then when we have non-members showing, we do take a 20% commission, as low as possible. And sometimes we forgo that. I think our average is that we give back to artists 95% when you look over all the types of sales that we do. In terms of galleries, we're not a commercial gallery. Of course, we're a nonprofit. But when you're looking at commercial galleries, the commissions can be as high as 60%. And the calculus there is that the gallery should be promoting you and bringing in buyers and collectors and helping market you. And so they should be providing additional services and in addition to just giving you space to show your work and selling it for you. But that's a pretty steep commission. And consignment is pretty much the same as commission, where you're giving you're using, I know we're middlemen. We're not the same type of middlemen as trading posts, I'd like to believe, but you're in a way like hiring someone to help you find a buyer or to sell your work, or to so you don't have to pay the rent on a storefront or the utilities bills and things like that. That's in general kind of the reason for these models. But artists should always be very aware of what the deal is, what kind of contracts they're entering, what they're getting out of it, and make sure that the gallery spaces or the consignment stores are working for them. And that's why, traders get away with, or other people get away with, paying a lower, like a very reduced rate, is that they think, or their perception is they're taking all the risk because they're buying direct, and then they don't know if or when they'll sell the piece next. But yeah, the art market, I don't think has ever really been artist friendly, and it's going to take work to make it artist friendly writ large. But that's the best advice I can give, is kind of, especially talk to other artists who have worked with these places before you do, so that you understand exactly the dynamics or what's at play before you enter into any formal arrangement.
Mytegia, do you have any comments to add?
When it comes to the consignment, I think that what they're doing at Gallup ART123 is probably the only place that I know of that is offering anything in that realm. And aside from that would just be First Fridays, where, what we're familiar with the Native and New Mexico Community Capital, what they're offering as far as allowing individuals to come in and have those art markets, and then them also allow them, and they purchase the items from individuals that they assist, so that they could go out and make sure that they're making it robust for not just them, the growth they're doing, their desire to help entrepreneurs, but also for the entrepreneur themselves to understand, okay, it did do good in our storefront, we are doing good with it, and maybe it's time for you to take that approach. I think a lot of times that's what it is that if you're afraid of something, people get so comfortable with things, they don't want to try it. They don't think that they should try it, versus, individual that I will go ahead and take into context is, there's a bracelet that I always wear. And it's a couple that comes out from the Lee area that make that jewelry. Not a lot of people are familiar with them. Individuals are older, and their work is very sought after. And the daughter was the one that took it upon herself to turn around and start advertising their jewelry alongside hers online. And they're very successful. Reaching out to a network of people that you could trust that can help you with that, I think is very beneficial. And then again, I think just having a few of our other success stories from individuals that we've worked with. I have quite a few of the artisans that I've worked with that, have had to learn that. One individual stated that she felt as if she was going to go under during COVID, when COVID was happening, because she was only reliant on the in-person swap meets and the sales that she was able to make. And that's what really forced her to gravitate more towards using Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and exploring a website and doing all of that, because she was very dependent on it. And from that, she was able to expand her reach into several different states and even overseas, just by folks being able to share her information and whatnot. She's got a very large following right now, and going from just staying in that shell to understanding that it is okay. But again, I think a lot of that comes from the technical support that these individuals are able to get, and the mentoring that they are able to get, to know that it is safe to do it, that they can do it, and that folks are already out there doing it. So again, I think strength in numbers when it comes to that. But I'll give it to Gallup ART123, because I don't think anybody else is doing what they're doing as far as consignment.
Yeah, I think it's important to have those spaces and those opportunities for people to sell at. And I already mentioned it, but like my fiance, I mean, not my fiance, he's my husband now. Um, he diversifies his income, and how we're still working on that part. But one thing that he does that I also think is kind of smart, and that more artists need to just kind of be aware of and maybe understand, is sometimes he'll come with an opportunity and he's not going to get paid for it. And in my mind, I'm like, you're not going to get paid for it. Like, why are you doing it? But in his mind, he's like, no, but this network that I'm getting into, and these people that I'm getting connected to, like, this is a good opportunity. So I'm going to do this work for free, because it might lead to other things, so he understands, okay, I'll take that loss, but I might have a gain. And so I think artists need to, kind of have that mindset too of, okay, maybe I'm not going to get paid as much this time, but maybe it'll lead to more. But then also they still need to know their worth, and to understand, no, I'm getting taken advantage of in this situation. I'm just going to walk away. So kind of learning and having that discernment about what your art is worth, and when you are willing to compromise and when you're not.
Yeah, because artists are asked all the time to do things for free.
Yeah, so that was just my little 2 cents on my observations with Alex and him growing his business. But I think, just kind of as a last question, how can we better support our artists, both in supporting their art, but then also supporting them as small businesses and entrepreneurs? I think it's important for artists to start thinking of themselves as small businesses and entrepreneurs, because that kind of changes the playing field, in my opinion. So how can we better support?
I think the better support would be the continued effort, not giving up on the initiative to try to expand what that ecosystem could look like when it involves entrepreneurial ecosystems. Well, we want to make sure that folks know that we're not going anywhere, for one, and that even if we do, as far as the program with UNM and whatnot, that there are still going to be these other resources that are out there, other allies that are out there that we've made throughout this journey of creating a space and being a voice for them, letting them know that even outside of that, with the work that I do with Southwest St. Bassett's Coalition, we offer financial literacy. We offer credit counseling. We offer one-on-one counseling for individuals who are dealing with unique situations to where they just need more insight. And we are bilingual, so we're actually able to sit down with you and communicate that with you. We have the resources and the availability to say that if you don't have the technology and whatnot, we can all offer that to you. When it comes to lending, we do relationship-based lending. So if you're having issues when it does come to, again, going to a bank and them saying, okay, you say you're self-employed, but you don't have a tax return, or we're not showing any kind of income. What do you have to show me, that? so that we can assist you. Again, traditional lending, it doesn't work where we're at. So relationship-based lending products is what we do offer with Southwest Native Assets Coalition. And I think for me, it's just continuing to be an advocate for our tribal community members and being a voice for them, bringing the awareness, not just to them, but also to our tribal leaders, to people in and around that have the authority to make some of those changes, or at least be a core component in the change that we're trying to advocate for. So, and then creating more allies, just like what we're doing with Rose and UNM right now, and making sure that everything is conducive to everybody that's involved in it. Just be a really good ecosystem.
I totally agree with everything Mytegia said about needing to, I love the word ecosystem and needing to cultivate that. And one thing we've been hearing from the artists that we serve is that the trainings are great that we've been able to do, but it's really hard to piece together stuff based off one-off trainings or irregular trainings. And they really want to see kind of more of a resource center. And those kind of exist in pockets, but they're not accessible to everybody. Or they, like Mytegia was saying, have inconsistent hours or other things. But I think at the root of that is just wanting like a support group or like a peer group. So we've been thinking about how we might be able to offer at least space for that, if not facilitate it. I don't know, it might be on it's hard to figure out the logistics of that would work for people, but creating kind of a safe space where artists can talk to each other and learn from each other about what the opportunities are, or to learn from each other's mistakes or hardships, or connect with different resources, I think is something that we at Gallup Arts might be able to help with. Because it's so wonderful to hear about everything Southwest Native Capital is doing. And I don't know, maybe we just even need to make a little booklet or something that we can be handing out, because it is access to information as the first step. And, when it comes from a trusted source, then all the better. But we just need to somehow create room, space, the environment for artists to feel supported, talk to each other, and learn about things, or be able to ask questions and get that kind of counseling, even if it's peer-to-peer. So that's what we've been thinking about. Maybe you guys can
And
help us.
I think that's what's difficult and unique about this as well, is that those resources are always changing. They don't stay the same. Let's say that there's a grant opportunity like what's going on with the Navajo Nation's economic development with their SBCI right now, and the funding that they do have. We just keep hearing during the Facebook Lives and the updates that the Navajo Nation Division of Economic Development does do, that they're running out of funding. And that's probably one of the scarier parts, is because you feel as if it hasn't really reached everybody. I've had several people come to me and tell me, I don't have a laptop. They're asking me for this. I don't know what that is. What's an EIN number? What's a business registration number? What's a UEI number? And and it's even internal. And this is what I tell my tribal leaders all the time. Stop creating barriers. Stop putting more barriers in the way of folks that are already struggling with it. Make it easier for them. And if they don't have it and they don't understand what it is, offer the technical assistance. Sit down with them, do some in-person office hours remotely, even if you have to, in the Gallup area downtown. I'm pretty sure that Rose be willing to work with us on that and offering space, or UNM does it really good, or I, could go over to look for a space to where we could all collectively work together. And, even Southwest Native Assets Coalition, we're really good at doing that when we sit down with our clients, because it's what we do every day. We do an assessment with our clients and we say, okay, what are your needs? And we explore that. That is where it is our job as liaisons. It's our jobs as counselors. It's our jobs as advocates to turn around and do the research, not to make that burden even heavier for folks that are already dealing with that. You're the think tank. You're the voice. You're the person that they're going to for answers. And so I tell everybody all the time, before you go any further, just understand and let me carry your headache better than you can. But help me alleviate the headache by also working with me to get what we need to get done. And I tell everybody all the time, an EIN takes less than 3 minutes to apply for. Sit down with me, we'll get it done. If you don't have an email address, let's set you one up. Bring me your personal information. Oh, they needed that? Let me quickly scan it for you. And they're boggled by it, because they're like, everything that and these are folks that are making I mean, one individual, I'll say that 6 figures doing their jewelry, they're doing really well. But when it came down to getting the paperwork and the paper trail process going, that was a little bit much. But when you encourage them and you help them understand that it wasn't that hard and that it was just a little bit more that you needed to do, and then you kind of give them the tools and the technology, and like we're saying, it's not necessarily just the support group of a one and done, but giving a person that continued outlet of hope of saying, you know what, yeah, you could just message me, give me a call, and we'll do our best to get back can, but we're not going anywhere. We're staying here and we're going to continue to be here. And I think that that's what we struggle with a lot, is that everybody's got an idea, right? And ideas, I mean, when you start to get an idea, you want to run with it, but after so long, we have so many organizations, we have so many sectors throughout Navajo, and every pueblo, every tribe across New Mexico and Arizona, they get that hustle and bustle, but they drop the ball somewhere and then they just leave it there. Nobody picks it back up because it's a hot potato. Nobody wants to pick it back up because it's too much. It's too much. It's a heavy burden to carry. But if we just don't lose that momentum and we just continue to pluck along with it, I think that we could do so much better. I think that New Mexico's Economic Development Division, I think that New Mexico Community Capital, I think Native Community Capital, Native Women Lead. I think that Roan Horse Consulting, there's a lot of folks that are out there that are really picking up that slack to make sure that that technical support, the education, the extended help is there. I mean, even Google is doing it. There are so many resources that are out there, and I think that that's what it is. It's just making sure that those resources are made readily available to individuals that come in. There's resource sheets and whatnot. I think if Gallup Arts even wants to collaborate with Southwest State of Assets Coalition and UNM to kind of get that resource listing like you're talking about, to say, hey, it's a one and done little, brochure that we do have here. If we can't help you with something, somebody else on this list might be able to. So maybe a resource list or something of that sort for folks, just to not, I mean, it could be very discouraging if you go in somewhere. It's like going to Walmart trying to look for a specific item, but you go in and they're sold out, and you know that the truck's not going to come in for another week. What do? And you're living 2 hours away from Walmart. You're thinking to yourself, is it really worth me going back to go get it? And that's what we're dealing with anything else when it involves tribal community members. Is it's probably about a good 2 hour, if not 3 hour drive for them to even get into a local town to take care of any type of business they need to, let alone selling on the weekends or having to come in and try to make a sale of any sort. And that's why they rely heavily when it comes to traders, is because we're limited. We're border towns. We're already put in a situation of where things are pretty much controlled, and we really don't have options. So I think that if we expand those options for folks, would do a little bit better. Sorry, I was extensive with that.
Don't apologize.
I get worked out.
No, it's good. I love it. That's why I have you on so often. Um, one thing that I thought of, when both of you were talking, is just having the concept of just having that hub, and that's one of our goals with UNM Rainforest Innovations, is to help create those ecosystems locally, for people to utilize. And one thing you need is space, right? So, Gallup Arts 123, at least that's a space, right? And then maybe we can work with you to help bring in like a set curriculum of training or something, and then we also, through our connection with UNM, we can use that space as well. So we have that, but it's just kind of connecting the dots further and creating like a set program for artists to get that entrepreneurial training. And that's where like we're willing to work with you, Rose, if you want to do something. We've been doing that type of stuff in other communities as well. So we could definitely help with that, or bring in like one of our other partners, like Mytegia said, New Mexico Community Capital. They actually might be a really good one to bring in, if they have the capacity, to provide that like entrepreneurial training for artists. So,
And I think that, a lot of even what I do with Southwest State of Assets Coalition, I know this is what Zach says that has always stuck with me, is I have lived, worked, and still live, grew up in a tribal community. So we understand, you know, when you're living and working in the community and you understand and know resonomics, it's easier because our idea of how finances and credit should go is night and day from what a lot of other folks would understand it as. And I think that when we talk about asset and wealth building strategies in tribal communities, that's always going to be different. The message is always going to need to be different because your audience is different. Have a lot of folks that are more cultured, they're more tribal based. There are things that they look at differently, and then that's just by way of their teachings, you know. And there's a lot of folks that really still hold a lot of that near and dear to them, and that is why the messages that we run with here at Southwest Native Assets Coalition gets as far as it does, is because we do have that cultural relevant curriculum. We do understand our tribal community members by way of, you know, I share my lived experience with them. I tell them, you know, I'm still growing corn. I'm still working on silver. I'm still dealing with a lot of issues that are prevalent in tribal communities on a day-to-day basis. And when you can relate to an individual on those levels and you can understand what their needs are and you can understand the way that they grew up or how they understand things or what their surroundings are, it's a whole lot easier for them to grasp that information as well, to let them know that it is possible. So that's another thing. Rose, if you ever want to collaborate on anything and you want us to come and share our sovereignty through education curriculum with any of your participants, or there's an upcoming event, just feel free to reach out to us. And that's the same for anybody watching this. If you feel as if you feel that your community or any work that you're doing would benefit from cultural relevant curriculum when it comes to housing stability, when it comes to finances, when it comes to credit, or even when it comes to basic accounting, banking, anything like that, we are a one-stop shop. So let us know.
Well, I'm excited, definitely, to continue this conversation and see where it might lead.
Me too, and definitely know that we're always here as a partner in terms of anything entrepreneurial, training wise, technical assistance. We may or may not be able to be like the direct person for you to work with, but if we're not, we can always, you know, connect you to the right person. I don't have any more questions. Well, maybe one last thing that I think it popped into my mind when we were talking was, what can artists do to like advocate for themselves and when selling their art? I think that'll be my last question, and then we'll wrap it up.
When artists are getting ready to advocate for themselves, whether it's selling a piece of jewelry to an individual or a business, I think one of the main things that they need to do is sit down with somebody that understands what a spreadsheet looks like, to show them, you know, if I were to do this on an hourly basis, this is the time and the effort that I went into one piece. If you give an individual the idea of how much work and authenticity that you put into that one piece, you're asking $150 for it, when in all reality, if you were sitting behind a desk and you were getting paid by the hour, that could easily turn into $800, $900, $1,200 versus the authenticity of what that is. And also, I mean, look at it from this lens. I always do this whenever I see a beautiful piece of jewelry from an artisan, and I always buy direct from the artisan, is this might be a piece that I'm not going to be able to get anymore, because the silversmithing aspect of any tribal community is slowly starting to fade, just like the language, just like the culture, just like the heritage, all of it. And unless individuals are willing to get out there and learn how to do it and learn how to promote that and whatnot in their communities, it's a dying art. And anything that we do see pretty soon, it is all going to be machine based, where, you know, there's no authenticity to it. So if you're an artisan, like any artisan I've known, or even what I've had to do, is when I would go into a trader's or go to deal with anybody in person, I tell them all the time, I am 100% sure that you're not going to find a piece like this by anybody else. I think that my prices are very fair and modest, given that, you know, it took me about a week to finish this one pair. But you know, just don't be afraid of not making that sale. Somebody else is going to come along and see it, and continue to do what you're doing because you're your authentic self and you're blossoming where you're planted. So I would say that you're just keep at it. Don't the days that you get discouraged, just know that there's somebody out there that sees your work, that appreciates it, and will buy it for what it's worth, if not more.
That's a great way to end. I don't think I can add anything more meaningful than that. We're always telling artists not to lower their standards or lower their prices. And I guess the only thing I would add is that I really do see a lot of value in artists talking openly about this kind of thing and their experiences and what's worked for them and what hasn't. And again, I know in Gallup that there's a lot of fear around that because it is a small town, and there is a fear of repercussions or retaliation. But that's also like the colonial method. A method of colonization is to divide and conquer and get people, afraid to work together or collaborate or cooperate. And if we can kind of overcome that, and if people can be at least between each other more honest, I think that will help everybody advocate for each other better, because they'll know, they'll have a better sense of what's going on. And yeah, I think that's kind of, what do they call it, like not silent advocacy, quiet advocacy, under the radar advocacy. I don't know.
I think it's called
Advocating for
making
each
good
other.
trouble.
Yeah, there you go. Always for that.
Awesome. Well, I like that, good trouble. I know both Mytegia and Rose are good at making good trouble in their own ways. So thank you for being on here. I think you guys are both really huge and important parts of your community and of the artist community in Gallup and McKinley County. So thank you for coming on here and sharing your expertise, and your experiences and insight with us. To help hopefully artists move forward, in however they see fit. I will be linking the website for Southwest Native Assets Coalition and Gallup Arts, ART123, in the description of this episode. But if there's any other ways that people listening can contact you guys or get in touch, how might they be able to do that?
If anybody wants to get in contact with me, the email would be best. If not, and you want to check out what we do with Southwest Native Assets Coalition, just go to swnativeassets.com and click on the link. We have a lot of information. We have our in-person financial literacy classes that we do host at UNM, and that is in conjunction with economic development and UNM Albuquerque's Rainforest Innovations Program and TEAP. So if there's anything at all that you need, shoot us a message.
And yeah, the Gallup Arts website is great. We're also on social media, on Facebook, and ART123 Galleries on Facebook. And then on Instagram, it's _Gallup Arts. That's a long story, but you can find us places. Or just stop by ART123. And you can talk to Sherelle, as our gallery assistant, and she's always there and can help.
Awesome. Well, thank you both so much, and I'm sure we will talk later.
Thank you. This was a privilege. I learned a lot.